All right, back now at the In the Arena panel as we talk about the race for U.S. Senate. It was late last week that Senator Susan Collins cast her 10,000th vote. She has never missed a roll call vote since being elected, and that breaks the all-time Senate record for the longest unbroken voting streak. Also last week, that we learned that Collins' presumptive opponent in the general election, Graham Platner, will appear on the cover of Time magazine. In a post on X announcing their cover story, Time wrote, "Even in this anti-establishment political moment, Graham Platner's rise has been remarkable. His candidacy is forcing the party to come to terms with what it is willing to risk in exchange for a fighter." These developments sort of underscoring, guys, the shape of this race being one of establishment and seniority against a populist insurgent candidate who is looking to upend the system. Platner, of course, getting a lot of outside media attention, including through this magazine profile being in Time. Ethan, does he risk being overexposed in this moment? Is that something that matters?
I think a little bit. I mean, we are in an era, of course, where it's very easy to get very national attention. But I do think he needs to make sure that Mainers recognize that what he cares about most are Mainers, not kind of national issues. Being on the cover of Time magazine, look, it's not his choice. They may have called and said, we want to do it, but we know that his campaign is pretty aggressive about trying to get him out there onto these national podcasts, helps to raise money. But I think he really just needs to make sure that he continues to focus on the little small magazines. Like, is he going to the West End News in Portland as opposed to Time? Or is he, looking to the Aroostook Courier as opposed to Time magazine to tell his story there? So, but look, I think his message is right, and Mainers are responding to it. The machine is not working. He wants to tear down that machine. And I think people are saying, yeah, that's what we're looking for.
I want to give you an anecdote to see if you feel like maybe the strategy is backfiring in his campaign, reaching out to national outlets or influencers. For example, Dave Portnoy of Barstool Sports, a staffer for the Platner campaign, had reached out, seeing if he wanted to do an interview. Dave Portnoy has a certain opinion of Graham Platner, which is unflattering. And then that exchange was posted online. That interview, at least as of now, that has not happened. Is that something that you'd consider to be a liability?
Not too much. I mean, yes, for sure, a little bit. But most Mainers have no idea who Portnoy is. They don't care about any of that stuff. They're going to make their decisions based on themselves. But, and that could happen with a Maine reporter or a Maine podcast just as well. But yeah, is it a little bit like you're pushing very hard to go onto these national media places as opposed to what are you doing to make sure that you're really talking to Maine voters? Now, let me just put the caveat out there. He's done way more to talk to Maine voters than Susan Collins has ever done, right? He is holding these forums and town halls all around the state, speaking to thousands and thousands and thousands of people. So he's doing that piece as well. But I do think he just needs to be careful once it gets to the general election. Focus really on Maine.
Is that a fair comparison, with Susan Collins being the incumbent? Of course, a lot of time doing the job in Washington, D.C., but there are opponents of her, and even some within the Republican Party, who say, hey, where are these town halls? We do want to talk to you.
Sure, yeah, and I think if you look at the statistics, the people on the right get as angry with Susan Collins as the people on the left. Tells me she's right where the middle of Maine is, and she has stayed on that path throughout her career. We all know that if you announce a town hall, who's coming to your town hall? Maybe some of the people who live in the neighborhood where you live, but most of them is an opportunity for people who are antagonistic or anti whatever your agenda is, show up and basically take over the town hall. I understand why those are fewer and fewer today. I think what you're going to have to wrestle with is Graham Platner has basically said, the system isn't working for me. I don't believe it's working for you. Elect me. I'm going to tear down the engine and rebuild it. Versus Senator Collins, who says, in essence, I'm from a sixth-generation family business. Our roots are in Aroostook County. I have served you well. I've responded to your inquiries. I've brought home financial support for the state of Maine, and I've never missed a boat. I've always gone to work on your behalf. I think that's the choice people are going to have.
How important is that 10,000th consecutive vote?
I think for people who look at this race as, well, who is the one who's got the experience, and based on that experience, have they showed up and gone to work, I think it's going to matter. If you don't care about any of this, probably Graham Platner's your choice.
And how about with Platner being on the cover of Time magazine? There was a time where that was a very big deal to be on the cover. Is it important today?
You know, I'm not sure how many people read Time magazine. When it was in print form, it was on everybody's reception area, and Ed Muskie, Senator Collins, Senator Margaret Chase Smith all appeared on the magazine at one time, and now we have Graham Platner. What a contrast between the paper publication of Time magazine back in the day and the digital form and who's on the cover today.